Hearing the word Kalahari, many people will immediately think of a sea of red sand stretching to the edge of the sky where hot winds scorch and every sound seems to evaporate at noon. But this land is trickier than we imagine. It is like an outdoor stage directed by the weather, and the cast is so large you have to turn on subtitles in your head to keep up. Each day is a new play, same setting, different tempo, and there is always room for a thin smile at the corner of the wind's mouth. At dawn, when the sun still hangs at an angle, tiny footprints scribble across the sand like last night's handwriting. From the earthen hollows, the scene-stealing supporting roles appear one by one. A bat-eared fox tilts its head to listen to the earth with oversized ears, as if tuning a radio to pick the breakfast news on termites, crickets, and beetles. On thorny branches, sociable weavers fuss over their giant straw apartment complex, a hanging masterpiece that demands collective discipline and a gentle reminder that here, building correctly matters more than building beautifully. The Kalahari rations water, so little tricks turn into survival laws. Blue wildebeest head out early to dodge the worst heat, looking stern like an internal audit team. Warthogs kneel to graze as if practicing a strange warm-up routine. Many species learn to drink from plants. The water-rich Sama melon serves as a portable flask for the dry season, while tubers hide moisture like a safe buried deep. Sometimes dry season clouds catch the right wind and drop a few thin beads, just enough for the sand to release the scent of wet earth. The desert squints and smiles. See, water still knows how to joke. By noon, the ground shimmers with mirage, and the sky's dome quivers like a sheet of silk on a line. Still, the show doesn't pause. A secretary bird strides long-legged over sparse grass, dutiful as a patrolling officer. Each stamping blow is a sentence passed on a snake that strayed out of its lane. Farther off, an ostrich moves in steady steps, neck swaying in time, unshowy but effective. The kind of employee who dislikes talking yet always meets the KPI. Afternoon falls, the light turns to honey, and the shadows of camel thorn trees draw together into rare slivers of cool. This is the hour of silent negotiation. Who stands nearest the shade? Who reaches water's edge first? Who slips away in time for the road home? No contracts are signed. Everything runs on unwritten rules. Avoid waste, minimize collisions, give way to the hurried. Swallows sweep by in bands, trailing a whispering wind like an audience during a scene change. At the rim of a dry salt pan, the earth reflects the evening sky as a dim mirror. A few figures passing, stretched long like models on a catwalk. Water-saving edition. Night drops, the heat subsides, the scent of dry grass and hot earth cools. The vault of the sky flicks on countless points of light. This is the night shift for the nocturnal cast. A caracal glides like a shadow. A great owl sweeps its gaze like a pair of headlights searching. Bats sketch neat geometric curves against the sky. On the sand, a beetle drags a shadow several times its body, leaving a dainty line as though signing the stage. The Kalahari doesn't try to frighten you. It prefers to charm with odd details. Comical gaits, oversized nests, drinking rituals measured out in thrifty sips. Thus, the harsh place gains grace. You come to see a desert, but you leave because you've fallen for the way it tells stories. Few words, many hints, and always a thin smile kept ready for those who pay attention. When heat lifts from the sand like vapor off a grill, the oversized characters step out one after another. They don't need to thunder about to draw attention. A few steps and the landscape yields the right of way. Black maned lions open with a long-distance call. The roar rolls over dunes like a night train, both to announce possession and to check which rivals remain within answering range. Their dark manes aren't just photogenic, they're warning placards hung on the chest, of age and ready. By day, they can serve each decision. Come dusk, coalitions of males walk the territorial edge, refreshing scent, rubbing cheeks on thorn bushes, adding lines of invisible script that anyone in the trade can read. The gentleman's work can be wrapped in 3 words: hold, keep, warn. With African elephants, it suddenly feels as though an architect joined the team. A trunk is all-purpose: straw, clamp, and sensor antenna. When a riverbed is dry, the matriarch leads the herd to dig small wells exactly where the sand is moist. The lazy aquifer will show up if you know how to knock. The little ones learn by poking and pestering, and then get a light ear tug from mom to remember the lesson. Migration needs no GPS. The herd's memory is a living map storing coordinates of the old tree in drought years, cut-throughs around loose sand slopes, and resting spots with contrary winds. When they find the bones of their kin, the herd falls silent, touching with trunks as if lighting incense. At that moment, the desert lowers its volume, saving space for a rite only they understand. Gemsbok step in wearing two straight lines on their heads. They don't waste effort. They stand angled to present the smallest possible surface to the sun, breathe through nasal chambers cooled like mini heat exchangers, and nibble unhurriedly at moisture-rich shoots. When provoked, they set distance with the first look. If the other side fails to understand that polite language, the horns will speak. Order here runs on very small warnings delivered very early. African buffalo resemble a mobile security council. Near water, seasoned individuals form a rim of horns with the youngsters tucked inside, and the whole unit moves like a solid block. One member gets pinned, the group wheels like a rugby formation change, smashes open a gap, and withdraws smoothly. No frills, only effectiveness. Above, giraffes serve as watchtowers. Their height lets them see through thorn scrub to spot trouble before trouble spots them. Their mouths carry a purple fishing rod, a long, supple tongue that plucks leaves from among thorns like a sushi pair of tongs. A big heart pumps blood nearly 3 meters uphill to the brain each second. Their vessels have safety valves to prevent fainting during sudden height changes. Hear a soft clup, clup in the wind? It may be ligaments at the knees, like discreet cleats on a model walking behind the curtain. Zebras are community life specialists. Each small unit has one stallion, several mares and foals, an extended family with scheduled grooming, dust baths, and rhythm drills. Stripes aren't a figure-flattering outfit. At certain distances, they scramble edges, making it hard for followers to keep a lock. At water's edge, the whole herd converses in short, snorts, whinnies, hisses, like a hallway meeting that wastes no time. Drink, then move on and cede the spot to the next group. Rarer but mood-changing is the black rhinoceros. It has a hooked upper lip like a leaf-pulling tool, poor eyesight that often mistakes a shrub for an opponent, but a superb nose and tirelessly swiveling ears. They use dung piles as a public bulletin. Each passerby leaves a signature, freshness marking the schedule. Sometimes 1 or 2 oxpeckers ride free on their backs, sounding alarms and paying tolls by picking parasites. Desert-style cooperation, simple, explicit, no paperwork. Last is the eland, big and strong yet placid. Shoulders relaxed, long dewlap, steps like a metronome. The patellar tendon clicks on long moves, a quiet sound enough for herdmates to recognize one another in vastness. They prefer open plains, eat many plant types, and often choose the safe detour instead of a risky shortcut. If there were a prize for keeping steady tempo, the eland would lift the cup without dispute. One noon is enough to grasp the giant's shared philosophy. Not flashy competition, only optimized endurance. Each species is a management lesson. Lions manage risk by voice and boundary. Elephants manage water by memory. Gemsbok manage heat by body design. Buffalo manage formation. Giraffes manage horizon. Zebras manage group rhythm. Rhinos manage space by scent. Eland manage stamina with low speed and long breath. In the Kalahari, big doesn't mean loud. Big means choosing the right move at the right moment and letting the sand do the rest. When heat halos up from the sand, the Kalahari switches state. The volume doesn't rise, but the tempo clearly quickens. Each species has its own event, and the shared secret is to go far without burning out. Ostriches are a lesson in applied mechanics. Two-toed feet work like big springs. Long Achilles tendons store energy and release it at the end of each step, so every stride stretches efficiency and stability. Wings don't serve flight, but they act like steering fins. A slight twist changes course. A brief spread becomes an air brake when slowing is needed. On soft sand curves, an ostrich leans like a motorcycle racer, holding inertia with tail and shoulders so the body flows instead of jolts. Hartebeest and Sasabi choose the low-head streamlined body run. Wind slides over their spines, and horned heads form points that cleave the air. Each burst is a diagonal slash through the grass. They use headwinds so their scent doesn't drift straight to the pursuer and keep changing angles so the chaser must constantly adjust. High endurance lets them sustain a clockwork trot, as regular as a machine. At night, spring hares turn dunes into steep dance floors. Their bodies are light, hind legs long, tails thick with pale tips that serve as tail lights for companions. Routes aren't straight lines. They're chains of short zigzags, sharp switches, high leaps and soft landings as if placing a pen down. For a follower relying on momentum, just 2 or 3 tempo changes are enough to drop the tail of the target. Steenbok choose the tactic of vanishing in place. The little antelope melts into sparse grass, ears pressed flat, its back aligned with the horizon, becoming a blur hard to pick out. In a bad spot, it fires once, cuts a corner around a termite mound, slips through a gap and sinks again. No fuss, just flipping the switch at the right time. On open ground, a caracol steps as if measuring a chessboard. Each paw lands on the quietest point. Whiskers tremble to test the air right ahead of the nose. Ears swivel independently to split background sound. It doesn't run long. It closes distance in a chain of short sprints until only one body length remains to leap. On open plains, the cheetah is a textbook of locomotion biology, a springy spine that lets strides fold-unfold to fling long, claws that don't fully retract to grip like track spikes, and a long tail as rudder to keep the body straight during hard turns. They choose cool hours, find low approaches, and only start the engine when the straight ahead is clean enough. After the burst, the body heats fast. Succeed or not, they must stop early to cool down, because safety limits matter more than one short-term meal. Above, the Cory bustard is heavy but deftly economical. It walks more than it flies, taking off only to clear obstacles or avoid trouble. Wide wings are the reserve fun, while legs are the daily transport. Such calculus fits a place where energy is as precious as water. Put it all together and a principle appears. No one runs fast forever. Everything relies on the economy of motion. Energy is stored in tendons, traded by angles, saved by curves, and repaid at the right instant. The desert doesn't reward the noisy, it rewards those who move just enough. Dawn. The air is still cool, the light low. From the thin grass, a pack of African wild dogs leaves the resting site. They check the wind first, then reform the ranks. Pups in the middle, veterans fanning across the flanks. The pathfinder keeping cadence at the nose. No barking, only glances and compact gestures. Morning energy is the cheapest of the day. If you're going to risk, this is the hour to do it. At the grassland's edge, a small group of antelope changes feeding grounds. The wind leans toward them, so the hunters must loop wider to avoid early detection. The camera drops low, following at shoulder height behind the lead dog. Step lightly, stop, observe, change angle. The team doesn't speed up. They shorten distance with zigzags, gradually cutting off the youngest prey's line of retreat. When the straight opens enough, they surge together. The chase lasts less than a minute. At the decision point, the right flank dog blocks, the center drives in, the left locks the turn. Every movement is like a rehearsed phrase, tight and precise. Silence comes first. Only then come sounds. Heavy breathing, grass pressed flat, a small bird exploding skyward. The meal is shared fairly. Pups get first pick. There's no infighting. The pack's tempo drops, but ears never rest. Any sound that isn't theirs is a variable. High above, vulture circles begin to blossom slowly. They're not in a hurry. Their work comes after. The sun rises. 6:45. On a slightly raised patch, a leopard checks a camel thorn thicket. It moves like a shadow, body low, tail quiet. It doesn't do long chases. It chooses a short approach sufficient for a single burst. The target is a lone animal, head down, nipping the last still moist shoots. When the hunter's shoulder lines up with the thicket's edge, the ground ahead is open wide enough. No antlion pits, no jagged thorn stumps. A safe run out is a mandatory condition. The lunge happens in silence. When everything is over, the first sound we hear again is the buzz of flies. The leopard does what it always does in the minutes after success. Hauls the heaviest part up a tree. The shoulder muscles work in orderly fashion. Claws closing, opening like locks. Up high, scent spreads more slowly. The risk of being repossessed is smaller. It eats a little, lies long, closes its eyes but keeps its ears moving, registering the slightest changes in the layers of air. Noon, heat pushes up from the sand. A clan of spotted hyenas leaves the resting ground. They do not hide. Their strategy is timing. Show up late, in sufficient numbers, and constantly read the sky for information. When they see angled wing shadows, they head that way. On the ground, any sign of just happened, a drag mark, grass mashed hard, a few hairs clumped together, is a clue. Upon arrival, if the feeding group is too small, they apply pressure with a ring of bodies, with that signature laughter, with hit-and-run rushes that skirt the limit of the other's tolerance. It doesn't always work, but over a month, this option costs less than hunting. Energy is the desert's hard currency. Whoever saves it gains another day to try again. Sometimes plot lines cross. A pair of black-backed jackals appears even before the vultures, waiting at a distance, eyes fixed on each shred falling from the frame of bone. They don't vie for leading roles. They wait for what remains. When the big crowd shuffles, they slip in like end-of-shift editors, gathering the scraps to make the afternoon easier. Each individual is a calculation. Is one step bolder worth it, or should I save it for tonight? Late afternoon, the light deepens toward gold. At the edge of a dry riverbed, the dust settles, exposing a long drag mark from a few hours ago. A male leopard returns to check an old tree where he refreshes his scent on light wind days. He's not there to eat. He's there to confirm that the order around him hasn't changed. A single strange sign, a fresh urine streak, claw marks with a different cadence. And there will be another patrol tonight. When the shadows reach the edge of the grass, the morning's wild dog pack has moved far from the feeding site. They find a tree's shade, lie a little apart so heat can vent faster. One lifts its head at the sound of unfamiliar steps. Hyenas passing. No confrontation. Each side stares just long enough to count heads, then goes back to its business. Most of the time, the desert prefers silent bargaining. Conflict costs more than most parties are willing to pay. Sunset. In the sky, the vulture's circles close like the period at the end of a long sentence. On the ground, dark drag marks vanish under a fresh layer of sand. The hunting day ends not with a grand scene, but with small details. A bone whiter in the fading light, a tuft of hair snagged on a thorn, a footprint slowly blurring. Tomorrow's script will differ, not because the cast changes, but because the cadence does. The wind tilts, the heat shifts, and old scents have faded. In the Kalahari, success is the sum of many well-timed decisions. Failure usually begins with a single second too early or too late. Late afternoon. Pressure falls. On the horizon's rim, tall cloud stacks pile up, black at the base, dazzling white on top. The first lightning bolt scores a line, then thunder arrives a beat behind. The raindrops are big, sparse, heavy. They hit the hot ground and evaporate instantly, leaving a faint smell of wet soil, a sure sign the dry season is loosening its grip. Within hours, the vast depressions, the salt pans, collect water like flat mirrors. The newborn lakes reflect the gray sky, and in the mud beneath, life thought gone begins to open its lids. Resting eggs as fine as dust, of tadpole shrimp and fairy shrimp, hatch all at once. Larvae swim toward the light, turning the quiet salt flats into plankton soup. From afar, bands of flamingos land in files, their bills stirring the shallows to filter algae and tiny crustaceans. Hoarse calls roll across the water's plain like a choir marching in even time. In the west, the horizon begins to move. Those are files of zebra and blue wildebeest linked into long trains cutting across the new grass. They travel fast while the ground is still damp to reach open water before the sun returns and pulls the lakes inward. Early season young are born on short turf. Sight lines are open, and stalkers can hardly approach without being spotted in time. Along the route, lions wait at choke points, creek banks, scrubby bottlenecks, where the column's pace must slacken. There are no long pursuits, only calculations of distance, choice of position, and the strike at the instant when the formation tangles. At the water's edge, a brown hyena appears alone. It works the lake's margin, sniffing for what the storm night left behind. Stranded fish, spent birds, small bodies washed ashore. Unlike its noisy spotted cousins, this one favors darkness and solitude, surviving on patience for what others overlook. The rainy season is a season of small chances, many and well spread. On high sand ridges, weaver nests hang heavy, with multi-chamber apartment structures that stand up to buffeting gusts. When rain lashes, the outer layers wet first while the inner stay dry and warm. Deep inside, the chicks scarcely feel the storm pass. Not far away, termites begin to plaster over ventilation mouths scoured by the wind. Each mound is an active HVAC system. Hot-cold conduits drive circulation to keep the deep fungus gardens at steady humidity. The storm wasn't only a test, it was fuel that lets the system run more smoothly. In flooded grass, frogs surface en masse. The odd chorus, some squeaking like squeezed toys, some hoarse like old doors, maps the message, the water is here. Eggs are laid in temporary pools. Their life cycles must race the sun that will return soon. Everything here runs on clocks. Fast enough means survival. One beat late means missing the season. When the sun returns, the water begins to draw down. On the new set mud, shoreline insects carpet like a rug, pulling in mid-sized waders, shanks, stints, sandpipers, dropping by along migration routes. They linger only a few days, enough to fatten for the next leg. Behind them, the pans pale back to white. The waterline contracts toward the center, leaving dry salt rings like chalk marks. The third afternoon after rain, the ground is firm. Zebra herds leave the pans for deeper belts of grass. Wildebeest follow, cleaning up what grows lower. Creaking along at the tail are heavy-bellied females. They need the tender shoots as long as possible. At the formation's edge, jackals track beside them, waiting for windfalls. A calf strayed from its mother, an old one misstepping. These supporting roles always get a share, if they know how to wait. A few weeks later, white surface reasserts itself. Tadpole shrimp have finished their cycle, leaving a new generation of desiccation-proof eggs buried in the mud. Flamingos depart, a faint pink line inscribed on the memory of the drying lake. The migration trains erase their footprints with the first dust of the season. The circle closes, waiting on another storm season. In the Kalahari, water is the head writer. It comes briefly, leaves quickly, but each appearance rewrites the order. From the smallest creatures to the long caravans, visible from the far edge of the sky. Dawn arrives like a small sentence. On ground still cold, the Namaqua sand grouse appear first. The males skim low in a line, break hard at the water's lip. They don't drink much. The main assignment lies in the belly plumage. Feathers there have grooves that hold water, like a living sponge. They stand still to let each filament fill, then lift off again, keeping steady speed along an invisible straight back to nests tens of kilometers away. There, thirsty chicks touch their bills to their father's belly and drink. The desert lacks faucets, so nature fits the spout to the caregiver's body. As the sun climbs, shadows gather underfoot. On a patch of ground speckled with thorn scrub, ground squirrels raise their personal umbrellas. tails held upright to cast shade on their backs, turning bodies into moving cool columns. They dig for roots, shift spots constantly, now and then popping upright to sweep the horizon's low line. Where heat is the default winner, a small patch of shadow can change the outcome of noon. At midday, wind sifts through marking heaps, the wordless bulletin boards. Wild dogs pass and set up the pack's communal latrine, a thrifty, unmistakable territorial marker. Hyenas smear secretion from anal glands on grass, a scented paint stripe that lets their kin read the patrol's route. The small, discreet steenbok uses repeated little piles to lay out its private map. On the same open patch, layers of information stack, keeping order by smell instead of sound. Late afternoon, as heat falls, the sand surface becomes a stage. Barking geckos stand before their burrows, chests fluttering, sending signals that are simple and clear. 2-3 short beats, a pause, and repeat. The call doesn't carry far, enough for neighbors to hear but too faint for distant predators. Territory, mates, safety. 3 lines in that minimalist score. The sun touches the grass's edge. On a camel thorn branch, a pair of giant eagle owls opens its eyes, eyelids faint pink against the fast-growing dark. They do not hurry, listening for the brush of a moth's wings through acacia, for sand whispering under someone's feet tens of meters away, for the soft thup when a spring hare lands from a jump. One rhythmic slip is all it takes for talons to answer. The desert at night has few colors, but it is rich in sound. Leaving the ground, the camera tips up to the Milky Way. Where lights are scarce, the sky is an old compass. Against that star field, a dung beetle rolls its ball in a straight line. It does not look, it reads. The sky's bright band, and even the faint glow we call the Milky Way starlight, provides reference angles. In this way, the beetle leaves competition behind, heading for a quiet patch to bury its food. Navigation that costs no energy, powered by what was there from the start, the sky. Later still, the ground slows. An aardwolf, a gentle termite eater, slips from the scrub. It doesn't dig out mounds like its aardvark cousin, it licks. A narrow, sticky tongue sweeps along the marching soldier ants, hundreds at each pass. A silent, steady meal that causes no wreckage. A strategy fit for a creature that doesn't want large enemies. At the edge of the dry river, a caracal appears like a bold ink stroke. Black tufted ears twitch, recording the high frequencies of night birds. It chooses the distance, launches straight, rears up on its hind legs, stretches in midair, the strike drawing a perfect diagonal to catch wings just lifting from a branch. No shout of triumph, only the return of steady breathing as the body cools. On the dunes, infrared reveals pale green streaks, scorpions glowing under the sky's ultraviolet. Their shells reflect in a way not fully explained. Whatever the biology, the effect is a fantastical slice of night. Nearby, another beetle scoops a little pit and lies in wait for insects to tumble in, the trap-digging tactic of one not fast enough to chase. Deep night turns. On the far edge, the ground trembles like a sigh. That's the low-frequency note of a group of elephants on the move. Part of the sound travels through earth, and the thick pads of their feet receive it like sensors. Giants read messages by laying a hand on the sanded tabletop. Literally. The note might point to water, or it might be a greeting from a herd across the valley. When images don't suffice, the desert uses vibration. Toward first light, the wind shifts. Under a shepherd's tree, a sand termite species opens its vents again after a damp night. Cool air pours down, warm air lifts. A natural pressure cycle that keeps the deep fungus gardens from thermal shock. Higher up, straw-colored sociable weaver nests hang heavy with dew, surviving the night without collapse thanks to cross-braced frames, a civil structure of feather and dry grass. When the first gold hits the horizon, the sand grouse return. A new day starts with old rituals. Soak, fly straight, feed the young. The desert's cue system, scent, sound, vibration, light, keeps spinning like a radio station that never signs off. Those who hear better live lighter. In the Kalahari, there are no posted signs. There are only small signals, repeated until they become law. And each dawn, That law is read slowly, clearly, right on the sand surface. A thin sleep away from a new morning, but today's log has not quite closed. At the dune's edge, the night wind finishes its edit, erasing some tracks, leaving a few strokes bold like footnotes for the careful reader. In a place short on real estate, every open door is immediately occupied. Farther off, a shallow swale of sparse grass has just seen a small lightning fire. The flame doesn't run far. It follows the driest bands, then dies on the edge of damp soil. In a few days, the burn line will be the first green line. New grass will pop up first, rich in protein, drawing grazers exactly where the cycle needs them. In the Kalahari, fire doesn't only take, it rearranges the order, like a clean cut between two film scenes. From a thorn ridge, the low drum of a ground hornbill sounds in steady beats. The note runs low across the earth, pegging a position for a mate far away. Each knock drives a spatial anchor into a sea of grass with no landmarks. Against that drum line, a few red blots of southern ground hornbills step slowly, white eyelids blinking like punctuation marks. They hunt sizable prey, hard-shelled insects, small reptiles, and sometimes even field mice. Breakfast is a series of pinpoint pricks into the grass. At the lip of an ancient riverbed, mineral salts surface in pale patches. A few herds, gray antelope, then impala, then ostriches, drop by. They lick the ground as if drinking a quiet tonic, replacing calcium, sodium, and phosphorus for the strength spent in the dry season. There is no quarrel. Each group waits its turn. A shared schedule is kept by distance and glance. No shouting required. Overhead, a white-backed vulture rides the thermal edge, black and white wings like signal flags. It sweeps along the sand tracks for small remains, the fuel left over from the daytime show. Closer to noon, the air thickens. The carrion bird's circles close, then open, then close again, like the slow breathing of the sky. Below, an old stand of camel thorn casts shade sized exactly for a few zebra families. The foals lie on their sides, ears still twitching. The mares hold the rim of shade, faces outward, guarding the approach lines. On the far side, oryx appear in pairs, choosing gaps that don't overlap. Each social unit keeps an imaginary circle. The borders of wind and footstep are enough for everyone to understand. Midday, the camera leaves the grass and glides past termite mounds scattered like a bank of chimneys. Fresh, pale soil has been patched onto the flanks since the storm, and the vents have been tuned to today's wind. Down below lies the fungus garden, a food source hypersensitive to humidity and heat. From the surface to the mound's core, air circulates like a giant lung. The whole structure runs without a sound. At the shoulder of a trail junction, a makoa duck dives and resurfaces in a leftover puddle, its bluebill bright under the noon light. It teases out the last threads of algae, making the most of things before the water shrinks further. Not far off, a red-backed kestrel hangs in the wind, wingtips trembling to keep position, eyes pinning a patch of grass that shivers oddly. A straight drop, clean and final. Short decisions, like hyphens, keep the noon from dragging on needlessly. Afternoon slips by faster as the heat drains. Cape foxes step out with thick tails and paws that touch down like punctuation points. They test each tiny change, new scent, a leaf's smear mark, the sound of falling sand. To reconstruct the story of a few hours ago, a lost youngster, a hurried hole, a half-finished meal. Little short stories weave the path for tonight. On the way back to their sleeping grounds, a herd of elephants turns into a lone grove. A few trunks are dark with the polish of many seasons of trunk rubbing and tusk scraping. They stand still a moment, as if listening for something in the earth, perhaps the sound of water deep below, or a faint reply from a far-off herd. Then they move on, along a route so many generations old, it no longer needs thought. Sunset. The light leans down close to the sand. From a distance, a big owl slips out from the canopy, skimming low over the thorn bushes, quiet as a shadow. On the opposite bank, a caracal draws itself taut to listen. Two night scripts begin at the same time, not colliding, yet aware of each other like parallel lines of music. Night falls for good. The sky opens like an old map. No signs, no streetlights, only cues. Scents still warm, thin sounds, faint tremors underfoot, and fixed stars. The day's cast withdraws from the frame, leaving an empty stage full only of possibility. Tomorrow the wind may shift, the heat may rise early, a storm may pay a visit to the salt pan. The script will be written from scratch with the same alphabet, but as new sentences. And that is how the Kalahari says hello, not with a proclamation, but with small orders repeated until